Good evening, or afternoon, or whatever part of the day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to another video. I think in the last video we spoke about normals and snapping and inferencing, stuff like that. That enables you to get accurate dimensions and get to accurate points in your drawing, stuff of that nature. Then I just briefly spoke about curved faces and smooth faces, and I spoke about faces and normals. Yeah. So by no means is this like an in-depth explanation of all these. These are just like basic surface level explanation, more like a beginner level explanation. So as you advance in the course, or as you advance in your learning process, you begin to understand better these concepts. But at least I need to introduce you to them on a basic level. All right. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the next four things outlined here, and that's merging, grouping, and further understanding how to select geometry. Yes, geometry. I think I haven't used the word geometry before in this training, and this will be the first time I'm using that. But just know that geometry is literally referring to your model. All right, so we could call it objects and stuff that, but geometry talks about the raw form of your model, like the way this is, and I can select any part of it and delete it, and it's still fresh and stuff like that. I can still play around with it, reconstruct it from part to part and stuff like that. All these are technically referred to like the geometry, this whole thing going on here. All right, so but the main point there is we'll need to understand some things now. All right, so very quickly, let me just go ahead and delete that. Go ahead and delete this. All right, so before I do, let me start with the selecting, further understanding selection. Now, if you quickly look at this, you find out that this is sitting on top of this, and when I deleted the bottom, you find out that let me I redo. When I deleted the bottom, you find out that suddenly underneath this part is empty. If I redo that, if I go inwards, or if I delete this face, you notice that those circles are still there. Or more like the circle is there, but it's not really having that face there. But what I want to show you is this. When I actually try to select this geometry, because when you double click, yeah, when you click the first time on a face, it selects the face. You double click the face, it selects the face and the bounding edges. Right, you know, we can select edges separate. Yeah, so when I double click a face, it selects the face and the bounding edges. Now when I do that here, it selects this face and its bounding edges, which is the size of the cylinder. And if I do this as well, it selects that. But what if I want to select everything about this whole, you know, cylindrical shape going on here? If I triple click, it selects everything that has to do with that geometry. Every connected faces, every connected lines, and everything that is connected to it. For example, if I were to come here and I draw like a line from this point, and I draw a line from here down to this point, and I pull that out. If I triple click it, it selects everything connected to it. Now, obviously, you can tell that since this is not connected to the bottom, it was on top of it, but it wasn't connected or merged to it. All right, so I'm indirectly talking about merging now. So it wasn't merged to it, so I could move it around. All right, so but when I have something like this, you see that okay, you can see that what happened is it was merged before. I actually reconstructed it, and that's why it's no longer merged. So let me move this. All right, sorry. All right, so when I actually reconstructed the whole thing going on here, it detached it from the, you know, because it was actually previously merged. All right, so let me just go ahead. Okay, let me see if I could undo to regain that. All right. Oh my God. All right. Now, if I triple click here, you see how everything is selected. And the reason everything is selected is because currently it's merged together. And if I move this, you may think it's swallowing up the cube, but it's not actually. If I go in, you notice that it's moving the whole thing. That's because you see in here, it's actually merged with a hole in here, and there's this edge going on here. You can see how it all joins together to form the big shape. Like it's already merged. Now, what I did before when I deleted this part, if I reconstructed, when I reconstructed it, it didn't, you know, do the merging that was there before. It's now a separate entity from the other one. So I could triple click this and it won't select this because they are not merged. And that's majorly because the face under here is covered. It covers it all the way through. Covers it all the way through. That's why this guy can move separately. All right, now, so when I click on the move tool, all right, so one of the other things I I didn't show us back then was moving objects. Now, when you are moving objects and you press your right key on your keyboard, it locks the thing to the red axis. If you press your left key, it locks it to the green axis, and if you press the up key, it locks it to the uh, blue axis. All right, so I lock it down and I bring it down there, bring it down there. All right, so quickly what I want to do now is I want to show you how merging works. Now, most of the times merging can work differently with faces. All right, so if I pick up this face, let's say I copy that face, I just did Ctrl C, and I just, you know, try to paste the face in. If I paste this face into this shape here, automatically, you see the face was white before. That's why you were seeing that flicker going on there, but now it's now the color of this place. Now what actually happened was the shape I drew, the circle I drew, because it's just like I drew the circle. All right, so the circle I drew got merged with this face and became part of the shape. So what that means now is if I push pull this, what I'm doing now, I'm not just push pulling the circle, but I'm push pulling the circle that is part of this whole geometry. So if I actually triple click here, you see it selects the whole thing. But this one is no longer part of that geometry because I drew this face separately from this one. All right. Now, one other thing I would show you is if I delete this face and I've lost that face, but I want the face back, one would think, how do I create a face? Now, when you have it connected, one other tip, because this is like a tips session, because we're going to be going into modeling, like in the next couple of videos, we start modeling real objects. So I just want to show you some tips that when I'm explaining or recapping them, I want some of these principles to be etched into your mind while you're modeling, so you become aware and conscious of them while you model, because it will, you know, make your modeling faster and to, you know, increase your proficiency. All right, so now you see I have this hole going on here, but I want the face back. I deleted the face, but there's no way to get it back. So what I just need to do is to complete this line from this point to this point. Now once I do that, SketchUp is going to automatically recalculate and like, okay, that line is completed. It goes all the way around and it's just going to fill up the face. All right, it goes all the way down and it's just like, okay, that's a completed line, so let me just go out and fill up the face. So that's what it does. Another thing I could do is I could still, you know, draw from all the way there to here and it will still fill up the face, and then I could still divide it even further and say that, okay, I just want to divide it like this. And when I've drawn these lines, I can go ahead and delete each of these face independently. All right, I want any of the face back, I just complete any of the lines and it gets me that face. All right, you must have noticed that when I did that for this shape, I deleted the whole flat part of this rectangle. If I just complete this line, it recalculates and closes it for me. All right, so if I should delete this with my eraser tool and I select this and delete, if I bring back my line tool and I complete this line, it goes ahead and closes it for me. It recreates the face. All right, so those are just like little tips I want to show us, because when we start modeling, you might run into weird situations, and I don't want you to not understand what I do in some parts. I want you to be able to grasp what is going on. All right, so that being said, that's a little bit of merging and some other things I explained. So I'll just go ahead and delete all this and explain some part of merging again. All right, now I'll draw some interesting shapes here. I'll do some interesting shapes here. I will insert this and then I'll pull this up. Then I'll do, let's say, let me do something else. Okay. All right, so I'll do a circle. And I'll put a triangle inside of it. Let me put 3, enter. So I just put a triangle in the very middle. All right, so let me pull this triangle and have that weird shape going on there. I pick up this triangle and with a weird circle in it, and I drag it and bring it to this top part. I just want to keep it up here and make it a part of this whole thing. And suddenly I just drag it and drop there. Now, one of the things you notice is that suddenly you can see if I want to rotate it now, let's say I want to actually rotate it to make it stand in alignment with where I want it to face. If I want it to be in the very middle. You notice like now I'm rotating it, there's a weird deformation going on there. Now, what happened is actually called merging, all right? So SketchUp is a very smart software. It goes ahead to pick up geometries that it thinks you want to combine together. When they touch themselves, these geometries tend to merge, especially the lines, all right? Usually merging happens in SketchUp with lines, not just faces, but lines. When lines touch faces or faces touch lines that are not grouped, all right? So that's where the whole merging thing comes into play. So, and automatically this is gone, like this shape is gone. There's no way for me to recover this thing. I can't separate this part. See, if I triple click now, it selects it all as one geometry. There's no way for me to recover this. The only thing I can do is to undo, but peradventure I can't undo. If I really wanted this shape back, I could save the lower structure by deleting the upper one, and I just delete the whole thing and remodel it and bring it back. But you see how this whole thing has messed up my model. All right, so but I just wanted to show you that when geometries touch geometries, they merge. All right, and this merging is not something. So for example, if I move this part of this geometry and I just move it, say, to this point, the moment it touches this, it merge. If I move to the second part, it merges it. Like I can't separate it again. Now you see it's one entity. If I just move it along, if I move it along the z-axis and I move it down, okay, I say I want to move that again. You see, it's made it one entity again. It's not. So whenever we experience things like that, merging is just happening. It's just merging it. It's just merging it. It's just merging it. I can't recover it. The moment I place it on top of another geometry, the software calculates and merges it. All right, this thing, you need to take note of that, because if you don't know this, you could run into frustration. Maybe you've modeled the table and you just moved it upon somewhere and all that. You could just get frustrated. All right, so but why am I showing you this? I'm about to introduce to you what we call groupings. Grouping, yeah. So what grouping enables us to do is to create a unique container for any geometry. All right, so I want to put this on top of this and let it face here, because it's not directly facing that. So I could decide to group just one of these, but one of the rule of thumbs whenever you're dealing with any model scene or anything is to always group your geometries. All right, when you're dealing with softwares like SketchUp, Maya, and the rest of them, sorry, they don't actually merge your geometries for you. You actually do that manually, but that's not the reality with SketchUp. And the reason it's this way with SketchUp is because SketchUp is majorly focused on accuracy, and it allows you to do things pretty fast. All right, so when you understand how SketchUp works, you know how to navigate around it. So what I could do now is to triple click, 1, 2, 3. I triple click on this thing and then I right click, and you can see make group or make component. So we're going to talk about component later, but make group now, what it will do is it will group this whole thing for us, and now it is an entity. So you could notice I can't directly edit it any longer. But when I come here now, I could move this. Now note I didn't group this, but if I move it up here, you notice that I could still move it and there is no merging going on, and that's because one of them is a group. But generally the rule of thumb is group every geometry, every piece of geometry that should be independent of another thing, you group it. All right, so you are making a table, it has iron legs and it has a wooden top. You group the iron legs and you leave the wooden top grouped as well, separate groups, and you could always name your groups. All right, so I'll just quickly go ahead and bring out my panel. So if I come to my default tree, turn on my entity info, my default tree seems to be hidden. Turn on my entity info. So on your default tray, you find out that you have entity info at the top right here. So I just have to bring that back for my explanation. All right. So with my entity info there, you can see I can select any of these things and it can show me some things about them. For example, this is a cuboid shape right down here. So it gives me a volume. Now, depending on the shape you selected or the nature of your group or what it is, whether components or whatnot, it will give you different types of information here as it relates to the object. So, but one of the things I want to show you as well is your outliner. All right, so the outliner currently is turned off. So I could just come to my Windows, my default tree, and I look for outliner right here and turn it on. So this is my outliner down there. So let me just minimize this for now. This is my outliner down there. And what it does, it gives me an outline of all the groups and components in my scene. Groups and components, not geometries. All right, any piece of geometry that is not in a group or in a component will not appear in your outliner. All right, so your outliner just shows you your groups and components. So it's more or less like your layer part, a part of your the way you have it in Photoshop or some other softwares right out there. All right, so but here what we call it is an outliner. So it outlines all the objects that are grouped. So if you really want to quickly find an object, ensure that they are grouped. So whenever you group it, you just call it a group. So but you can give it a name. I call this a cuboid. A cuboid, if I could spell well, and I'll call this a tricircle. Tricircle. All right, so that being said, you see I can just quickly navigate to this and I could turn that off or on from there. I could still go ahead and do that from either this place. I could decide to lock that so that I can't affect it, I can't move it. I could move some other things, but that can't move. So I'll just select that and I'll just what so I'll just select that, and okay, I just did an undo, so I'll undo that. All right, so you've seen how grouping works here just slightly. So what I can do now is to go ahead with my group. I will pick up my rotate tool and click on this. All right, so I want to rotate it with respect to its part, so I'll rotate it till it gets to this middle. All right, so that way I have it in a very perfect middle of where I want it to be. So I just wanted to face here. So we've seen how group works and how it enables you to group objects, and it doesn't allow geometries to collide with one another and begin to merge. All right, so just before we conclude this video, this is quite a long one, so but just before we conclude this video, in this video, one last thing we'll deal with is components. All right, so components, okay. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. All right, in the next video we will treat the components, and I'll just give you a little bit of scenarios where you could use components, whether you choose to use components or group. All right, thank you very much. See you in the next video.